I always get hair stuck to me. Does anybody else? Welcome back. It is Leesh, and today I have a travel video, so I thought it would be good to have a map in the background. I'm doing a top destinations I recommend for first time solo travellers, because the amount of people I see on forums that are like, I want to go travelling for the first time solo, but where do I go? I go where I won't get lonely, that's safe. Well, I would tell you this now, not every single place, regardless of where it is in the world, no place is going to be 100% safe, and you cannot guarantee that where you go you're not going to get lonely. So just to put that out there, like, where is going to be 100% safe. These are just some destinations that I would favour over others, especially for first timers, and most of these are from my own experience. I will say if they're not, because I have a few at the end that are not from my personal experience, but I would love to go and I've heard are really good for first time solo travellers. So yeah, let's begin. So the first one I'm going to talk about is my first ever solo trip. So my first ever solo trip was to Berlin in Germany, and it was a good trip. I went when I was 19, so I went in January of 2019, so exactly a year ago today, and I was 19 when I went. I spent 2 nights and 3 days in Berlin, and honestly it was such an amazing city. Like, the hostel I stayed at was such like a good hostel. It was quite cheap, it was close to everything, and yeah, people in Germany are just like actually quite friendly. And the first time I touched down there and I got on the train, I wasn't sure which train to get on, and there was one train at the platform, and I got on this car and I got straight back off again, and this girl like came up to me and was like, "Oh, are you alright? Like, which train do you need?" And I was telling her, and she was like, "Oh yeah, it's this train here, like, come on." And she was actually a German like somebody from Berlin who had studied in England, so she knew English very well, and she gave me her number and was like, "If you have any problems, feel free to call me." And I just thought that was so nice for somebody to go out of their way to do. I actually met somebody in the hostel. His name is Dan, and he is from Italy. So yeah, I would give Berlin a rating of 8 out of 10 for first time solo travellers, and I just think it's such a nice city. It's got a lot of transport links and the people are really friendly. What I'm going to talk about is Portugal. Now, Portugal is known for being one of the safest destinations for solo travellers, especially like mainland Portugal, which is where I went. I went to Lisbon in Portugal, and yeah, it was really nice. It was my first stop on my month-long trip around Europe, so yes, I really did enjoy Portugal, and the hostel I stayed at was so nice. It was a party hostel, it was right near the centre, and yeah, it was such nice. Like, I had such a good time. I met a load of people who I'm still friends with today. Like, we all still follow each other on social media, and yeah, so I met a bunch of people. Like, I met people who were German, I met a Canadian, I met obviously people who were in Portugal, I met people from some parts of Asia as well. Like, it was a mixture of loads of different types of people. We sat on the train on the way to Portugal, and this family came on with their kids, and they were speaking Portuguese, and they noticed I was just sat on my own, and they just sort of came over and started talking to me, like, you know, yeah, it was really nice actually. And yeah, it was like quite friendly. I would give Portugal a 9 out of 10. So next on the list is Italy. Now, Italy is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to, and I went to Milan, I went to Venice, I went to Rome, and I went to Pisa. I went to Rome last, so yeah. But it was really good. In Milan was really friendly. Like, I stayed in this hostel in Milan, and the people there were so friendly. I arrived and I looked like this, like, I was so sunburned, and the people there gave me some like sunburn cream for free. Like, yeah, and they were just so friendly. I went to Pisa in Italy, and I stayed in this hostel in Pisa, and it was so nice. Like, the hostel I stayed at was so nice. It was literally like 20 minutes away from the Leaning Tower, so I would recommend. And I did a walking tour in Pisa, which I will link the guy that run the tour. So I recommend. He took me to this, like the top of one of these hotel buildings. It's like this really posh hotel, and he doesn't normally take like a lot of people there if they're in big groups, but yeah, it was such an amazing experience and I loved it. Then I went to Venice, and Venice is one of those places where people say you shouldn't go like on your own, but I actually really loved Venice, especially like being on my own. I actually love just exploring the city on my own. And yeah, Venice was so good, and I met so many people. Like there's like one girl that I met in Venice that I'm still friends with today, and we're planning on doing another trip together soon. So yeah, Venice was so good. And yeah, and I stayed at this hostel, and it was so cheap, this hostel. But yeah, you had to get the train into the centre every day, but the train was like €1. Oh, that's another thing. Don't get the wrong train, you will get fine. And then finally I stayed in Rome. I stayed in this hostel. This was honestly the best hostel out of my entire month's trip that I stayed at. They had a bar across the road where you could go get free dinner on an evening. You had a wristband that got you like 30% off drinks, and it was so good. Like the hostel there was such a good experience, and the people in the hostel were so friendly. The staff were always willing to help and everything like that. So yeah, I love Rome. I would happily go back to Rome, and I would happily just go back to Italy in general. I really do want to go back to Italy. Italy, a 9 out of 10. It would be higher, but because of that fine, I won't give it higher. So these are just now some destinations that I have heard are very safe, not that I've experienced them solo. So the first one is Spain. I've been to Spain, but just not solo. But yeah, Spain is supposed to be really good for solo travellers. It's supposed to be really friendly, and it's quite up there in Europe for like being one of the safest places in Europe. So yeah, I'd recommend that. And then of course you've got the normal ones like Switzerland, Denmark and Norway. I've heard they're very friendly for solo travellers, and I heard they're very they're very friendly, very accommodating. And another one I could say is Athens in Greece, but I cannot vouch for them because I didn't go to Athens solo. I went with my friend, so I can't really say whether I would recommend it for first time. Athens, and yeah, it was so good. The hostel I stayed at was really good, but yeah, I can't vouch for that. I've also heard that New Zealand and Australia are good for first time solo travellers because obviously they speak English, so there's not that much of a language barrier or culture barrier. And yeah, so I've heard that you can go to New Zealand and Australia. Not that I've been, because I haven't had enough time off to go because I'm still in university. So yeah, that's just some destinations that I recommend, and I hope that this video was helpful.